Welcome to another episode of No Talking During the Movies. I am your host, Stephen Austin.
I am your co-host and consigliere Tank.
What does consigliere mean?
It's like just basically a guy that tells you not to hook up with certain people. Just
That's
kind of keeps you on the straight and narrow. Gives you good advice.
okay, cool. That sounds about right. Like
Like
like like a smarter wingman.
kind of like an uncle that doesn't sneak into your room.
Okay, so the boring type of uncle. Got it.
Exactly.
The one where people say, "Oh yeah, I had this one time with my uncle," and then everybody's like, "Yeah," and then you're like,
Uh,
"Yeah, he took me to Target. It was pretty cool."
yeah, it was
Yeah.
not. And he bought me that toy I wanted with no expectations, no
With
strings
none.
attached.
Well, Tank is Thor, and I am Loki. We may seem like brothers, but really we have a falling out every few months when he is a huge annoyance and I fake my own death. That's a pretty common occurrence for us, actually.
All right, all right. That was really funny because I was earlier today. I think my wife spiked my breakfast burrito with diarrhea, and yeah.
Where is this
And
going to connect with what I just said?
well, no, I was thinking about which character in the MCU you think you would be, and I
Oh,
was
me
wondering
personally?
who I think I would be, and I literally, what's funny is I literally picked Thor.
Over all of them? Yeah, I could see that. I think me
Yeah,
personally, I'm more of a like a late MCU Tony or a full MCU Star Lord.
I can see Star Lord. I was gonna say maybe an Ant Man, but Star Lord's
Maybe an
actually
Ant Man.
better.
I think
Star
Star
Lord's
Lord
actually
just
better.
because I'm just ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's
and you
that's
love
what,
'80s music,
and I
so
love '80s music. I was listening
yes.
to a lot this morning, and if you ever change your mind, so
See? Yeah,
it's it's
that's a really Star Lord move.
and it's a real problem with me. So
Mhm.
I'm the huge annoyance, and you're the one who fakes your own death. Maybe we should switch those roles. So our question is the same exact question from last week, except with a little twist. Because we will be talking about Phase 2 of the MCU today. So if you could change one thing, and I know you have plenty of ideas for this, but one thing in Phase 2, what would it be in the MCU? Different actors, directors, or a redo of an entire film? Anything is on the table.
This might be controversial,
Oh no.
um, but I don't like um, Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts. Now, there's
So,
plenty of these movies that could
yeah,
be changed,
sure.
but I, she's not terrible. It's
I think she's fine when she tries. Like she's her
yeah,
best in Iron Man 1 because she cared about that
yes.
movie, but
Hmm.
then after that she didn't really care about the MCU.
And Iron Man 3 is a shining example of how terrible that is. And how that's right when things started to be like, okay, so everybody has to have superpowers now. Everybody's the
Right. And
same.
I mean like they took that away from her right at the end and they made it like I will say to this day my favorite part of Iron Man 3, well maybe not my favorite part, but one of the best parts in that movie is when she like I think it's when she defeats Aldrich and she just kind of breathes for a second and she goes, "Wow, that was really violent." And I always thought that was really funny because I'm like, oh yeah, she's not really used to this life, you
Well,
know?
also like the fact that she knows how to do Ryu kick. You know what
Oh
I mean?
yeah,
Like
that was completely out of
regardless
nowhere.
regardless of superhero powers, you don't just know how to, you know, crouching tiger, hidden dragon fight. That's not
That
something that
yeah,
you
it came out of
develop as
nowhere
yeah, exactly.
because
So that
his argument in that movie is it's like, oh, we can extend your brain, so then like extremis, it'll help regrow body parts, and it's the next step in human evolution. But I did not think downloading all the kung fu from the Matrix was in there too. Whoa, I know
that's what I'm
kung
saying.
fu.
You know who she may be a little too maybe she's too young. Anna Kendrick, I think, would be like an awesome Pepper Potts. I just need
Uh,
somebody more earthy. You know what I mean?
you
Like
know what I was thinking? Amy Adams.
Amy Adams would be fantastic.
Amy Adams would probably be like the perfect bet.
Yeah.
Though I also would want her to be used more in the MCU. So
And
maybe one day she'll get in there.
and Maggie Gyllenhaal. You know, somebody
Yeah.
more like, I don't know, like Gwyneth Paltrow's too fancy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And maybe that's like partially because it's Tony, and like maybe that's like, but I don't know, man. I honestly
But it's like where she is now in the MCU, I could not like when I went back to Iron Man 1, I was just kind of like, "Oh yeah, she was like his assistant."
right,
I
and she
totally
was like,
forgot that.
she was kind of cutesy, and like you know, you obviously, like, the thing is, it's like the whole movement is all based around uh now it's women can't be in trouble and men can't rescue them. That's like the new thing.
Well, I mean,
So
even if that happens in modern films, it's not necessarily, a bad thing. But switching the script is not a bad thing either. It's just what we're seeing now is a lot more of it, almost as if they're trying to catch up now that it's more
it's
okay.
an overcorrection. It's an oversteer.
Okay, that's probably the better way to say it. Where introducing it is not a bad thing,
But
but when
it's
it's
not
everything.
that it's not that necessarily even that's the case that I have a problem with. It's just that it's Gwyneth Paltrow, that it just
Oh,
doesn't
okay, yeah.
that just doesn't it doesn't compute for me. That, you know what I
You
mean?
can see Brie Larson like kicking butt as Captain Marvel
Right.
because
Sure.
she looks and acts the role, but Gwyneth
Well,
Paltrow not so
and
much.
also that makes a lot more sense too, because she was a soldier
Sure,
uh before, so she has like training
Gwyneth
and
Paltrow
and
literally was just a maid essentially in the beginning, or an assistant.
in the beginning, yeah, but also, you know, a lot of times, so you understand, as a person who like watches enough TV and movies, that, you know, in reality, a lot of the times executive assistants, that's where they get their starts, are
Sure.
often highly educated,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where they, you know, begin their ascension towards the top. So
I mean,
like
after Iron Man 2, she was the one running the company.
exactly, and like that, to me that wasn't like the huge leap, you know what
No.
I mean? Because it makes sense to me, because somebody who runs basically Tony Stark's life
Mm-hmm.
would have to be intelligent enough to be able to handle a company. You
I
know what I
mean,
mean? Like that's, so
and
that's
and
not the stretch for me.
yeah, in all of Iron Man 2, essentially he's going like, making these poor decisions, and she's the one saying, you shouldn't be doing this, you should be doing this. Like, she clearly knows what she's doing, and that's what makes him go, well, it's you then. You do it. You run the company. You're
Yeah,
clearly
exactly.
better than me at it.
I don't care at this point. I'm just
Yeah.
being a superhero, and you know, and so like that, and maybe even in that function, I don't really have that much of a problem with um Gwyneth Paltrow. But now that when you said that, it totally clicked to me. That's what it felt like. She just doesn't care anymore, because it does kind of
That's
feel like that.
100% what it is. I mean, I watched an interview with her when they're asking her questions about Endgame, because she gets
Mm.
her own suit in Endgame, and they ask her what was it like being in the suit in Endgame, and she literally was like, "Which one's Endgame?" Like, she
Right.
literally didn't know. And like Tom Holland sitting right next to her, the like biggest fan of the MCU and now in it, and he's just kind of like, "That was the one we were in together, but not my movie," And I'm just like, it's just, yeah, she just doesn't really care anymore. And you know what? Neither did Natalie Portman. She dropped out of it after Thor 2, but it's because of the direction that they're taking now with being more inclusive and having more fun with some of it. Taika Waititi, the director of Thor Ragnarok, was literally the one who was like, "This is what I want to do, and I want you in it." And now she's back in. So I think it's, as long as people care about the project, they come across a lot better. But yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow from Iron Man 2 onwards didn't really seem to care.
No, and it's definitely, you could definitely see it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a shame, considering how large her role in Iron Man 3 is.
I mean, yeah, I mean, what was it? Civil War? No, not even Civil War. Age of Ultron. It was like, where's Pepper? Why isn't she here? And Tony's like, and that's all they do to explain why Gwyneth Paltrow's not in the
Yeah.
movie. And then Civil War, he says something along the lines of like, yeah, we're taking a break. And I thought, this is what I could do to like make it up to her, making the Sokovia Accords and everything. And I'm like, she just wasn't available for the movie. You didn't want to pay an extra like $3 million for one scene with her. I get it.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it makes sense too. You get it. Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of the members of the MCU are just very passionate, or they know what it is and they care. So they're a lot more open to doing more and more and more. Where Gwyneth Paltrow, I feel like, if she knew how big it was going to be from Iron Man 1 standpoint, she probably wouldn't have been in the movie. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
She probably would have been like, oh, then maybe it's not for me if I'm going to be doing this for the next 12 years. So my answer to this question is how Mandarin was handled in Iron Man 3.
Yeah. It was funny.
It was really funny.
That's not what it's supposed to be.
Right. We would have liked to see the real Mandarin, which we now know is going to be introduced in Phase 4. We're going to get to see the real one, because they've essentially been like, oh yeah, that thing Aldrich Killian says at the end where he's like, I am the Mandarin. No, that's BS. He's not the Mandarin, you know?
Well, what's a shame is that Sir Ben Kingsley is not actually the Mandarin, because
he was terrifying.
He was so great.
Yeah.
In the propaganda videos.
Oh right. God, so great.
Right. I mean, just like perfect for that. So that's a real shame, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, watching the trailers, because we didn't know it was like a fake until we actually saw the movie. So watching the trailers, I remember being like pumped for it. I was like, he's so scary.
And the thing is, it's also like a lot of times, I think this phase was the worst about it, honestly. They waste a good storyline on a dumb joke. I think
interesting.
I think because that's exactly what that was. Like, that was an incredible opportunity to have, because MCU has a villain problem.
They do.
You know what I mean?
I feel like it's only gotten better right at the end.
No, I mean, in like Killmonger, Thanos.
I thought Hela was really good in Thor Ragnarok.
Hela was great.
She was a fantastic
terrifying, believable.
An argument could be made for Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I know that movie's not fantastic, but I think her motives are reasonable enough. Mm-hmm. Even though it essentially comes down to, well, now this person's here and they just have to hold your head for 2 seconds and now you're fixed.
I just didn't like the phasing thing. You know what I mean? Like, that was annoying to me. I mean, like, and it's just from a standpoint of like watching it was annoying, but I don't know. Also, I didn't care. You know what I mean? I just didn't care.
But on terms of villains in Phase 2, I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to Phase 2. When we start going over it. The other quick thing I wanted to say that I would have also liked to see done with Iron Man 3 specifically, they introduce AIM, the Advanced Intelligent Mechanic. I can't remember what AIM stands for, but they're a big problem in Marvel Comics. Mm-hmm. And that's the company Aldrich Killian like makes and works for in that movie. And he's essentially just got like an AIM t-shirt, and then that's it. And then that's like all they do to talk about AIM. And I'm like, they're a huge deal in the comics, and I would love to see like
I think, you've already got Hydra. Hydra is your what's
wide scale villain.
No, it's your widget, but there's another word for widgets in movies. MacGuffin. Hydra is your MacGuffin.
Oh, as in just something to fight against?
No, MacGuffin is like anything that you need something to be.
Oh, okay. Like to progress the story.
Right. So like anything that, the evil behind the evil is just always going to be Hydra.
Oh, okay. I mean, but it's just so different in the comics. They have so many different ones.
I get it. But
I mean, MODOK comes from AIM. And he's the main villain in the Avengers video game, and so every person you're fighting in that game is from AIM. Mm. And I'm like, it's really weird to see an AIM t-shirt in Iron Man 3 and then them to just never bring up AIM ever again when they're supposed to be essentially an evil corporation.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where comic books have a little bit wider of a berth because they can
Oh,
eh,
cover so much more. And
they have, like, you know, and that's like people have much more focused attention when it comes to comic books.
sure.
The average movie going public is, you know, you just have to see how this is the same thing I run into in radio, that people are always like, why do you play this song and that song? It's like, because I can't play every song that every individual likes. I have to find
Right.
songs that the
Wide
majority of
span.
people like. It's the same thing. You have to appeal to a masser, you know, group of folk so that everybody could be more into it, because you can't just hyper focus on what a small group wants, or you won't be successful.
Do you think it's also like about recognize ability? Like Hydra is so much more recognizable than an technological company.
No,
Hydra as a villain.
I think it's just a direction they chose to go with, because it's more, quite frankly, I think you know, the way the world's been a lot lately,
Mm-hmm.
Nazis and things like that are a lot more relatable as villains.
Sure.
So you pick a direction and you go with it. Now that's not to say that they won't in the future. I mean, you know, Batman obviously is able to have several villains at once, but I
Right.
think when you're talking about shadow organizations that run, you know, more of your villains, when it comes to movies, I just don't think you can add that many of those. I think you have to keep
I
that
get that. I
kind
guess
of.
maybe my hope for the future of it is now that Tony Stark is out of the picture for Phase 4, I would hope that AIM becomes like the new, like, we're the corporation that's filling that, like, technological gap, and they get so big, but they have shady motives behind them, where Iron Man was literally a superhero and fought for good. AIM is like just any other corporation that'll, you know, even get in the way of the superheroes every now and then. And it
Sure,
doesn't,
sure.
you know, this could be a TV show villain. It doesn't have to be like major end of the world consequences. But I'd just like to see them be used a little bit more. Before we go on with our Marvel topics, I got two trailers for you today. The first one I want to talk about is the Trial of the Chicago Seven. It's going to be a Netflix film coming out. Did you get to check out this trailer?
I did, man. I looks interesting. I'll
Yeah,
tell you
I think
that.
it looks cool.
You know, the cast is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, poignant. Uh, One of those things. There's sometimes a movie will spark your interest in something, the way Once Upon a Time in Hollywood piqued my interest about the Manson family. You know, I
Right.
mean, this is kind of one of those things where, like, okay, that's an interesting story that I want to learn more about, the real part of
Right.
it, not necessarily the dramatized, you know, thing
Sure.
that we're going to see.
Totally. I mean, I watched
So
the trailer and it looks super exciting and everything's like on edge. But I'm sure, you know, if anything, the real story might just be way more interesting. In what really actually happened, and I'm sure, you know, it's directed by Aaron Sorkin, so I'm sure he's gonna do it pretty much
you
justice.
you can't. I mean, honestly, you can't really go wrong with Aaron Sorkin.
Well, exactly. It's like a political drama, and I'm just thinking, like, man, when has he ever done one of those? Like
Right, right.
West Wing and All the President's Men, right?
And also, didn't he do the newsroom? That was him, right?
I think so. He also did that one from a couple years ago, but I don't know if that was political. Molly's Game. Did you ever see that one?
Oh, no, no, that wasn't. That was about.
That was a gambling thing, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it was like blackmailing against political and celebrities. So
Ah,
that's
okay.
where it kind of fit into his realm. But anyways, he's great, so I trust what he's gonna do with it.
And
And
he does dialogue amazing,
yeah,
and a trial is nothing but, you know,
dialogue.
dialogue
Yeah,
basically. And also, I've been saying this for goddamn years, that Sacha Baron Cohen is an amazing actor.
yeah. I'm excited to see him in more stuff. And apparently, like, he's been secretly filming another
Yeah.
Borat, like, and people have noticed him as Borat throughout the country. So I'm like, well, that's happening.
I mean, but like, you know, that being able to pull that off is an amazing feat, and you have to be a
Mm-hmm.
great actor. But I would have loved to have seen, because he was originally supposed to be Freddie Mercury. Like, he was working
That's
on
right. Yeah,
a
yeah,
Queen
yeah.
movie,
But that
and
was God, when was that? That was like,
It's years ago.
yeah, like in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah, and the everything went south
Mm-hmm.
because he wanted to portray Freddie Mercury, a little bit more gritty than they did in Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right. He
Bohemian
wanted to kind of
Rhapsody,
show the real
like the
part.
party
Yeah.
animal and like all that stuff. So obviously Queen wasn't with that. Everybody wants to be remembered as much cleaner than they really are. So
Yeah.
Queen wasn't trying to have that. And Bohemian Rhapsody, great movie.
Yeah, I love it.
But just not accurate, and that's fine. That's fine.
Right. Yeah. My favorite thing about that movie is they have a deleted scene, but it's not really a deleted scene. It's just an extended version. They do the entire Live Aid set in the film.
Really?
Yeah, but they cut it down to like 4 minutes in the movie, but it's the entire like 22-minute set, and they have a deleted scene of them like replicating all of it. It's so good.
Amazing. It's amazing.
So awesome.
So I think that Sacha Baron Cohen way more brilliant than anybody gives him credit for.
Totally agree. And I'm excited to see him in this. Who else? We got Joseph Gordon-Levitt's in this. We got Jeremy Renner.
I am a JGL stan.
Not Jeremy Renner. Not Jeremy Renner. Who is I? Eddie Redmayne. I don't know how I got those two confused. And yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I love to see him in more stuff. Did you ever see 500 Days of Summer?
Love that movie.
Man, it gets me every time.
So good.
So
and
good.
That's Anna Kendrick, right?
In 500 Days of Summer?
Aubrey Plaza?
No. Oh my god, I forgot her name. Oh my god, and I love her. Wait.
Yeah, I do too, and I'm a big
Zooey
fan.
Deschanel.
Oh god,
I love Zooey Deschanel.
I crushed on her so hard in that movie, dude.
Yeah, she's great.
But that
Cast
was
looks
just
good.
That I agreed, and interesting. So to see something that we don't really know anything about, you know what I mean?
And that's
much as something we're talking about in a little bit. Watchmen did for bringing to light the Tulsa thing.
Oh my god, yeah. And that's this trial thing. I really don't know much about it.
Exactly.
And I'm really excited to kind of like, I promise you probably exactly what you're going to do. You're going to watch the movie on Netflix. And then you're going to like watch documentaries about it and learn more. Yeah.
That's what I do.
I'm going to be doing the same thing. So that comes out, I think, October 16th on Netflix. The moment I saw Netflix at the end, I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Don't have to go out of my house to watch it. The next trailer and something I'm super excited for is WandaVision. Do you like the trailer? Come on!
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, I don't know how all of that's framed. You know what I mean? Like I see what we're getting. It's like an I Dream of Jeannie type of deal.
Sure.
And that's like the whole premise of it. But like, what is that in context of? Like,
so we don't fully know yet, but in the comics, there has been moments where Scarlet Witch literally altered reality in like a depression state to have a different life. And so the theory is after the loss of Vision at the end of Infinity War and now past Endgame, she is literally trying to create a world where he exists in her head through her reality altering abilities. And I mean, like, in the comics, they have 2 kids in that, and, it goes to some pretty long lengths. But, like, it's just weird and fun, and this looks weird and fun.
It'll probably be good. It's just, I gotta know, like, how they're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, what's the crux of it? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I can't just commit to saying, like, now obviously the trailers look interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that
they look fun.
They seem to have playfulness, but like I honestly, I don't want a sitcom version of a comic book unless that's exactly what what we signed up for from the beginning.
I
You know
mean,
what I
I
mean?
think it's supposed to have the facade of a sitcom, but it really is like, I mean, just think of that scene where they're sitting down at the dinner table and
Mhm.
God, I forget the actress's name, but the woman who played like the mother in that 70 shows there, and she's saying like, "Where'd you guys come from? Why don't you have kids?" And
Yeah.
and it's just so tongue in cheek, but then they honestly can't remember. And that's
Hmm.
when it's like, wait, how did we get here? And um,
I I will say the second round of trailering has given me much more hope than the first round because it does add
the
that
first,
reality into it.
yeah, the first round was literally like, here's them, but in like different era TV shows, But this is literally like, yeah, that's the face of it. But man, when it gets into the serious stuff, I mean, people have analyzed that scene of him like flying around during Halloween or something, and they realize
Mm.
like people are frozen in place, so somehow the entire world gets frozen during that, and he gets to view it, and it's like it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna mean a lot, I think, to the overall MCU. It's probably gonna connect to the next Doctor Strange movie because Scarlet Witch is involved in that, and I'm excited. I'm very excited.
Oh, I'm glad you're excited.
You're not excited.
We'll see. We'll see.
When it comes out, I bet you're gonna like it.
I'll watch it and I'll probably like it. I mean,
Yeah.
this has happened a lot of times where, you know, uh, I wasn't excited and then I end up watching it and loved it. The converse has also been true. I've been super excited
And you
and was
hated it.
super let down, a la Luke Cage season 2.
Yeah. Hopefully, this will
Well,
be better than that.
couldn't be worse.
um, so moving on to our first round of news, we have James Gunn doing a TV show. I don't know if you saw this, but DC apparently approached James Gunn on the set of the Suicide Squad and was basically like, "So if you could do a TV show of any of these characters, who would it be?" And James Gunn chose the Peacemaker, which is John Cena's character, and so they're giving
Which,
him an HBO Max show.
by the way, uh, probably didn't choose that guy. He's the only guy who's not a motion picture star.
You think so? You think
I
that's the
mean,
case?
like, what is he gonna like? He wouldn't pick Harley Quinn.
I mean, he could have done Michael Rooker's character because they're best friends. I mean,
Yeah, but who's Michael Rooker's character?
I can't remember his name.
All right, see, but like, there's a balance that they struck here of name recognition versus won't be too hard to work with because he's not necessarily in 10,000 movies.
Sure, but I mean, like, even James Gunn, he's not much of a TV guy, anyways. So, like,
That's
he's
true.
breaking barriers doing this too. So,
And but I will say this: the idea of Peacemaker, I think, is a really fun character, and if they do the
yeah.
show right, it could be really good.
I think what was the poster they showed where it's like the over stylized picture of Peacemaker's head and it's all
Mm.
red and all it says is OF and it's the word it's Peacemaker. Like that was their poster.
I mean, I like it. I'm into that. So yeah,
It looks fun.
I mean, I'm not gonna get another streaming service, but I can see how that would be good.
It's true. I mean, I already have HBO Max through my phone bill, so luckily I will get to watch it.
Oh, you fancy, huh?
I'm fancy. I also get to watch that Harley Quinn animated show that was
Yeah.
on DC's service, but now is getting moved to HBO Max's, and I've heard
Is
nothing but good things about that.
Yeah, it looks pretty awesome. Is DC is that service going down?
I think so. I think they're moving
Yeah.
all of their original content to HBO Max, which makes the most sense, I think.
Honestly, that's the way it should be. There shouldn't be so many streaming services in the game.
Well, it's also like DC. Granted, it's DC, but I don't think they had enough to call like their own for a streaming service.
I don't know,
I
man. I
mean,
think it's the DC animated movies are pretty dope.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
having all those in one place is pretty cool.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I feel like if Star Wars did their own streaming service of just Star Wars stuff, it's not worth it to me.
no,
If
you're right,
Marvel
'cause there's
did
not
their
enough
own
content.
streaming service, doesn't seem enough to me. Add Marvel, DC, or I'm sorry, add Star Wars, Marvel, and Disney. Suddenly, it's like, oh, this is exactly enough. I didn't need any of the Fox properties, but I got them. But
Mhm.
those three options are enough for me to be like, that's worth it. But yeah, I'm super excited to see this Peacemaker show. I think it'll be silly and fun because it's James Gunn at the helm of it,
and violent, which is dope.
which is also what I'd like.
Yeah.
Speaking of HBO, we also got some pretty interesting news after the Emmys. So Damon Lindelof, I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. He's essentially the creative head, and I think the original creator for the Watchmen TV series that came out on HBO. And he essentially said, you know, it was a limited series, so now that we have won something, I definitely don't want to do a season two. Which they left it open enough at the end that they could have, but I think even I told you after I watched it, I was like, I don't want a season two.
You know, and as much as I want more awesome content like that, I also appreciate the fact that they took something that they could have made a season two about and
Right.
just left it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just don't fiddle with perfection. Just let it just let it lay. And you know, that show was really, really, really good. And I don't I gotta respect this guy for respecting the limited series. You know what I mean? Like,
because he won an Emmy for Best Limited Series.
Right.
Like, I saw somebody on Twitter say something like, if he won the Emmy for Best Limited Series, wouldn't it be, like, against the rules to make another season? And I'm like, there's no rule book about that. He could just do it, and maybe the people who run the Emmys would want their Emmy back, but it's not like it's a huge deal. But
the story was so good and so well told.
yeah,
And
exactly.
oh, it was so good.
And I like the open-ended ending.
Yeah.
That, like, I could imagine what happens,
Right.
without needing to see the fallout afterwards. You know what I mean?
What's the is it Mr. and Mrs. Smith way that she says that happy endings are just endings that haven't ended yet? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so that's like, you know, what I think about every time I watch a show is like, we've reached the crescendo, but this isn't the end. You know what I mean? There's always going to be more for what's happening in this story. And I think that now, would I be interested in knowing what happens because they left you kind of on a cliffhangery part?
Yeah.
Sure I would. But the fact that they don't show you is also kind of sexy.
But would you also rather think in your head your own ideas of what happens?
Sure. And you would hate to see them come through with a second season and ruin what they did.
Or what you already had in your head. I mean,
right.
You know, I think when Solo, the Star Wars movie, came out, many people were really upset because they were like, I didn't need to see Han Solo's background because in my head I already pictured how he got there. And sure, that might not be accurate or canon, but now I know that's not. You know what I mean?
But I'll tell you what, it was all worth it just to get young Lando Calrissian.
Yeah, to get Donald Glover as Lando is perfect. Without spoiling, I want to know your opinion for Watchmen at the end of the show. Do you think it worked? That's how I'm going to phrase it. And just say yes or no.
Yes.
I do too. And I want it to be that way.
I believe that because, again, without spoiling anything.
Yeah, because I want everybody to go watch the show if you have the access.
I believe that. Okay, let's see if I can get this. Okay. I believe that is the intention of that.
Yeah, the way that they shot it.
Well, not only in the show, but I mean from a story. Motive. The character that did the thing that they did.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be guessing.
Oh, like it'd be a sure thing.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
So then,
for the people who don't know, they're like, okay, and then for the people who do know, they're like, I right?
Yeah. So I like couldn't recommend that people watch this show enough. We watched it in a day and a half because we liked it so much. And my wife is certainly not into comic books and things like that, but the story was so compelling and the way they did it, so smart, dude. It was so smart.
That show's a genius.
I mean, like really, like the story, like oh my goodness.
I love it so much.
And like you jump around
A little bit.
in history and stuff like that, and learn stuff, and then the fact that it deals with so much of the stuff that we're dealing with right now
Yeah.
as a culture. It's man, I can't. You turned me on to that show, and I have to thank you because I loved it, and I was so glad I watched it because I wasn't gonna watch it because I loved the movie, and I was like, I don't,
And then
but,
I think I was also like trying to explain how the show takes place after the comic, but the movie has kind of a different ending than the comic, and
right.
I like the comic's ending better. And you're like, well,
Me too.
that kind of sounds ridiculous. I remember you saying you didn't like the ending to the comic because you were so used to the movie. But now after watching the show, you're on the same page.
And definitely just now, now I just take them as two different tellings of the same story.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
Because the movie follows it fairly well.
Yeah, right. And it's bizarre, but like the great thing about the movie was the way everything was kind of working underneath, and nobody really knew. You know what I mean? Like all these things were happening, and the show works the same way.
Yeah,
everything was set in motion in a way that nobody really knew that things were being set in motion. They were playing their role, and by playing their role, they were kicking things into motion that they had no control over.
Yeah.
And the show works the same way, and it was amazing.
I love that show. Everybody go watch Watchmen on HBO. It might be
for sure.
Might be my favorite thing I've seen on HBO in a long time.
That's a bold statement.
I'm saying in a long time. What have you seen recently on HBO, like new wise, that you could say is better than that? Ooh. And I'm not saying like it's better than The Wire or The Sopranos because those are older shows.
All right. Well,
I think it's better than Game of Thrones personally, and I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with that. But
it's not fair because, honestly, the last season was so whack.
Well, yeah, that's why everybody was kind of against it.
But you got to remember the first 7 seasons were so good.
They are, of course.
I really loved the first season of Westworld. I thought was great. Second season, not so much.
They've really died out on that momentum.
And I haven't even watched the 3rd season yet. But I do have it, and I will watch it.
It's apparently not better. I haven't watched it either.
True Detective is top notch.
Damn.
Ballers. Oh my God, the show that doesn't get nearly enough love, and that's The Righteous Gemstones. Oh my God, that show. Gemstones. Exactly.
Why is it immediately I thought of Uncut Gems?
I don't know, but you need to check out Righteous Gemstones.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
Danny McBride. It's Danny McBride and the guy from Jexy and Workaholics, and Adam McKay. Is that his name? Adam.
I think so. I think I've seen the trailer for this, and
Dude,
is that the religious show?
Yes.
Okay.
John Goodman is amazing.
That's right. Show. John Goodman's okay. I'm gonna check this out because I haven't watched.
So John
this yet.
Goodman is the dad, right?
Yeah.
And he runs this church.
Isn't it? Is it like televangelist?
Yes.
Okay.
Like a Joel Osteen. They're on TV, super duper wealthy. Dude, Danny McBride is so funny in the show. Not even the funniest part of this show. There's a million things happening. The daughter on the show is, dude, oh my God, some of the funniest stuff, and it's so good, and nobody talks about the show, which is
I'll have to check it out.
It's a travesty, and now you made me change my recommendation. So
okay.
Silicon Valley was great, but
poor
again,
poor TJ Miller. But not really. I don't like TJ Miller.
Really? Yeah, I find him annoying, but I liked him in that show.
Well, yeah, specifically what has happened since. Because he dropped out of that show to do the Emoji Movie, and he said, Emoji Movie's like the future of comedy, I'm doing that from now on. So he just dropped Silicon Valley.
What
He
a terrible call that
he
was.
was like extremely drunk one night and like called a bomb threat on a hospital or something. Like
Jesus.
he's literally a crazy person that I don't want anything to do with. And even Deadpool 2 made a joke on like a newsreel after they did all of their shooting. It was like a newsreel down at the bottom that said like we couldn't get Christopher Plummer to like play the role of TJ Miller or something. It's funny. But
Yeah, yeah, and Eastbound and Down. It's a bold statement. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just saying there is some stiff
oh,
competition in there.
sure. But I'm just saying, I think just because I really like the superheroes and dark superhero like mentality and how it takes the story from the comic and puts it in a modern sense, I mean, I just love all of it.
I like how realistic it is. You
Yeah.
know, even though they're superheroes,
But
and the
like,
idea, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say that in the movie, the cops in Tulsa are given superhero identities to protect their identity.
well, yeah, so it's after like something that happens because it's like public record who are police officers and
Mm,
something terrible happens which then causes this thing where every police officer is wearing a mask and they're
mhm.
essentially, maskless face yeah, or faceless masked police officers going around and helping the city. And then once you hit detective, that's when you get like a persona. So
Mm.
and again, none of these people actually have superpowers. They're essentially just like
You know,
trained well.
what's weird
Oh
is
no.
we're living in a world right now where all the police are wearing masks,
Yeah, and we don't know their identities.
and so are we. Everybody's wearing masks.
Yeah, that's true too. We're all superheroes in our own way.
Yeah,
Inspirational
in our own
talk.
lives.
All right, let's do quick MCU news. Just a couple of things real quick. WandaVision we know is going to happen at some point this year, which means Falcon and the Winter Soldier has been pushed to next year, and that was supposed to be first on the list, but now we got WandaVision, and I think they said Falcon and the Winter Soldier will probably very early next year. The breaking news that happened literally right before we recorded this: Nick Fury is getting his own Disney Plus TV show.
Nice.
Yeah, with Sam Jackson, which that was the part that surprised me the most. I was like,
That's
is it gonna
surprising.
be like super young Nick Fury, or I don't know. I didn't know how they were gonna do it, but they said they got Sam Jackson to play the role.
Probably Agents of Shield kind of thing.
I'm
Maybe.
thinking so, like very along those lines, and I hope we get to see more like Maria Hill and Phil Coulson's character. I'm hoping we get to see them involved in it. And then the last bit of news is that Black Widow has officially been pushed to next year, which now makes it the first year since 2009 that we have not gotten an MCU film, which I think is pretty nuts when you think about it.
Really is.
To think that every single year since 2009, we've had a movie that takes place in this universe. And now, because of the pandemic, it takes a huge break. I think if it had to come, it came at the best time because
True that.
it would have really sucked if this all happened right before Endgame came out. And then
Can
we
you
had to wait
imagine if
like
you had
a
to
year
wait
and a
for
half.
Endgame?
Like, we already had to wait a year from Infinity War to Endgame, but
Right.
then add a year and a half to that. 2.5 years.
Uh,
We would have been halfway through the amount of time they were spent in the snap. At that
right.
point, just
I'd
make us
just
wait 5 years.
I just be scratching numbers into my wall, counting the days, like Castaway.
Days, days since, the snap. Me, me need to know ending. Yeah, so I'm a little upset that Black Widow has been pushed. I would really like to see it come out, but I know they want to give just as much treatment to her as they think she definitely
Yeah,
deserves at this point. She needs a theatrical release. That's no question.
yeah. It sucks though because I've been waiting a long time to see this movie, and it also sucks. It's kind of stupid to me that she's dead, and we're just now getting her movie. You know what I
That
mean?
I
Like,
completely agree. I completely agree.
if you're gonna do this,
It's a damn shame.
we should have done this pre Infinity War.
Well, the movie's supposed to take place right before Civil War, so it's like should have just done the movie then.
Something, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for
Like
real.
now, now we know it's like watching Titanic.
Yeah,
or I always said that Pocahontas was the Titanic of people. You know what I mean? Like we knew what was gonna happen.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Yeah, I'm just I'm pretty upset because she definitely deserves her theatrical release. But I will say if Disney did end up doing a Mulan treatment and released like a premium access thing for it, I probably would pay it because
I'm,
I
I refuse to pay $30 for a movie.
well, yeah, maybe if it's $30, maybe not. If they did the regular VOD $20
20?
for
I'll
a
do
couple
20.
of days, sure. But you know, it's a character that I want to see more of. I want to see this. I want to see this film play out because I'm
Oh,
kind of
a lot
excited.
more of.
So we're moving on to our phase two. We're gonna do a quick overview of phase two, and then afterwards we're going to do our top three of this phase, in our opinion. For you, I honestly don't know what you're gonna do as your top three because before we started this podcast, you were like, "Man, phase two was not good," and I was like, "You thought it was bad?" And you're like, "It's not good." So,
It's not good.
I mean, there's some winners in here. There's plenty of winners in
40,
here.
40% good. That's a D, bro.
Forty
No, I'm sorry.
percent. Where are you getting those
That's an
numbers?
F.
40%.
Yeah, 40%.
That seems about right. Well, wait, maybe I'm just not doing my percentage. No, it's not 40%. What are you talking about?
1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 movies.
There's 5
Two of them were
movies.
good.
I am excited to find out which one of these movies you did not think was good.
Okay.
Oh wait, I know which one. Never mind. It's because everybody doesn't think this movie's good, but I think I do.
Yeah.
That's actually 2 of them for me. Anyways, we'll just go into it. Iron Man 3 is the one to start off. You think this movie's bad, right?
I wouldn't say bad. I think bad's a. Again, okay, so.
You don't think it's good.
I don't think it's. I don't think it's up to the high quality. It's like, you go to a restaurant every day, you get the same food, and it's always delicious. And then one day it's just okay. That's what this is.
What would
Just
be your
okay.
letter grade for this film?
C minus.
C minus? That low? I would at least give it a C plus. Actually, me
'Cause it's
personally,
pat-
I'd give it a B. But
It's passing, but just scraping by.
okay,
Just scraping by on some of the better action scenes
sure.
and Tony's performance.
So, well, that's the thing. I love this movie because of Tony's performance because it's a movie that essentially I think the thing that this movie did the best after Iron Man 2 at the end it says Iron Man will return, right? And then did it for Thor, Thor will return, Captain America will return. This movie at the end it says Tony Stark will return. He doesn't his whole journey in this movie is learning that he doesn't need the suit. And
Right.
that's even something that we see later in Spider-Man Homecoming, where Peter says he's nothing without the suit. And that is an entire movie that Tony had to learn that he doesn't need it to succeed.
And he was able to impart that wisdom onto
Spider-Man because he's gone through it.
that's the subtle genius of the MCU, stuff like that
Right.
happens. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I like the kid in the movie.
I think he's funny.
A ton of the scenes are awesome. The Mandarin, before we found out he was a phony, was awesome.
Literally perfect.
Yeah. And a lot of good things happen in this movie, and a lot of funny lines. He's like, I almost figured this out 20 years ago when I was drunk, so I could.
I could
no
definitely
problem
do it now. Yeah.
Right. So that's like, great line and things like that. So I mean, it's not without its merits. It's just it's the silliness of it all. You know what I mean? Like,
but I love the way they handled the whole break apart suit. Like, did you love that
Yeah,
stuff?
loved it.
Especially
I
when
did.
he's like tied to the bed frame or whatever that's like up, and he's doing the whole like, you guys are gonna be dead in 5, 4, 3, come on! He's just like, it's just not there yet.
Yeah,
So
that's
funny.
awesome.
All of that stuff was great.
It's and a lot of that stuff, like you said, not depending on the suit, realizing
Yeah.
that he's more than just the suit, and starting over, and
Dude,
Here's the
that
thing.
yeah.
Um, Probably could have used some of those sentient suits against Thanos. You
Sure.
know what I mean? In that big
Yeah.
war scene, that would have been nice to have, but whatever.
Dude, could you imagine if like he never blew up those suits,
Right.
but he's on another planet and he had to be like, I guess at that point it would be Friday. Friday, release the suits from
Right.
Malibu, and they have to fly through space to get to Titan. They make it there as like he's getting stabbed, and he's like, finally.
I mean,
um,
yeah, that would be awesome. But again, like it is what it is, and
yeah. I really enjoy the movie. I know not a lot of people do. And remember, I'm rewatching all of this stuff now after knowing how it ends. Because
mm,
I really do consider Endgame the end of like the MCU at this point. And
sure.
I know it's gonna continue on, but I consider all of the MCU its first run, and then everything from here is a sequel. So this is how I consider like character development and growth and looking back on it and how it affects how they are in the future is really fun. And I've enjoyed basically every single movie I've watched, even ones that I'm like, here we go.
Well, and getting the arc reactor taken out of his chest
Huge.
is a thing that says basically he has a heart that has nothing to do with Iron Man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I get it, and that there are, like I said, the movie's not without its merits. They do exist in this movie. It's just that some of the stuff that happens, for instance, the fake Mandarin,
Yeah.
Killian. You know what? I kind of hate Guy Pearce, and that might be sacrilege, but I kind of hate Guy Pearce.
Wow.
I don't like the hey, I'm in a sports brawl, and I know Ryu's kick. You
I
know what I
will
mean? That's
say,
the stupidest shit I've ever seen.
right at the beginning of the movie, I was immediately upset when Guy Pearce shows up and he's like hunched over and he's walking with a limp and he's
Right.
got like the big buck teeth and his like hair is matted and he's got the big glasses and he's like, "Hi Tony, will you help me?" And then he comes
Hey.
back years later and he's like super handsome and all put together and he's like, "Now I'm confident." I'm
Hi.
like, he wouldn't have helped you even if you looked like this back in the 90s.
It's like, hey, villain, obvious villain, nice to meet you. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
thank you
Like,
so much.
stupid. I also like that Happy Hogan gets more of a story
Yeah.
in this,
Yeah.
and I love the relationship between him and Tony,
Yep.
and how upset Tony is when he gets hurt.
Oh my god,
You
when
know,
he comes out of the hospital and he's essentially
yeah,
like, "I live at," and he gives his address and he's like, "Come and get me." And then he like breaks that dude's phone. He's
yeah,
like, "Bill me." And he drives off. I'm like,
yeah. That's
"Damn,
awesome.
he's pissed," and I love it.
Yeah, and then they blow his house up. So,
Yeah, which I remember being like, why do they blow his house up again? He's Iron Man and they're in helicopters. What do they? And then it was like, this suit is not combat ready. And I'm like, you've got 15 more down below.
yeah, it's
30
it's
under
silly.
them.
Also, they didn't know his address till he gave it out on TV. I mean, he literally lives in a UFO on the side of a cliff.
Yeah, for
Nobody
real.
put that together.
I also love last thing I'm gonna say about Iron Man 3, and we gotta move on. But I do love that joke when Pepper comes home and he's like downstairs working out, but he's like pretending that he's in the suit upstairs or whatever, just chilling. And the line she says is like, "Oh, that one's new. What number is that? Like 14?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, something like that." And he looks over and it says Mark 42. That always killed me because I'm like, yeah, he's been working. I love it.
Yeah, he ain't been
S-
sleeping.
yeah, that's true. So next we have Thor: The Dark World, or as my friend
Hold
likes
on.
to call it. Go for it. Yep, thanks.
Sorry.
Or as my friend likes to call it, Thor: The Dark Thor.
Yeah.
So this movie is one that I have said in the past I have never watched before because it was like, why would I subject myself to what everybody is telling me is like the worst piece of garbage in the MCU? So I'm like, I'm not gonna watch it. When I was doing my rewatch for this, I watched it. It was my first viewing of it. It's not good. It's not a great movie.
It's not good. It's not good. It's the plot is super hard to follow. Like the villain is like the dumbest villain. Like it's just like you couldn't like it's one of those things where you're getting through it and you just don't care.
Yeah,
You know
after
what I
a
mean?
while, I honestly couldn't take it anymore during like the final fight and they're going through those portals to all the different realms, and I absolutely couldn't stand it that every time he would like show up to Earth, like the hammer was trying to get to him, and then he'd go through another portal, and then the hammer's like, all right, gotta go up and like get to that realm, and it drove me nuts because that happens for a good like 6 minutes like of the fight. It's like, he doesn't have his hammer, what is he gonna do? I don't know.
It's bad.
Yeah, it's not great. So I
give
know
it a
that
D.
Yeah,
solid D on that one.
I'm gonna give
only
it a
reason
D-.
It's got a D is because it's got Thor in it. I mean, and Thor's awesome.
But like even then, his like best scene in that movie is right in the start where he like knocks that rock guy in the pieces, and then that's like it. The rest of the movie, it's just him kind of upset that he's not with Natalie Portman's character. She's actually kind of funny in that movie, though. Like, when she goes to Asgard and her mind's blown, I was like, I would watch an entire movie of just this, but...
Well, you're lucky for you, you're going to get it.
I am going to get it, though. That's the exciting part. Okay, so next we have Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Boy, to follow... do you think this movie's viewed as so much better, not only on its merits, but also because it followed Thor: The Dark World?
You know, honestly, you know what I think it might be is that Captain America quality is just a cut above. I don't know why. I don't know what the reason is.
We also got the Russo brothers from this.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's like there isn't a dip in any Captain America. Every single Captain America is super super solid.
I think so too.
And this one was great. Bucky, this you know, I get this a lot of mixed up with Civil War in my head a little bit because you know, but also at the same time, you know.
Well, both movies are about the Winter Soldier essentially.
Right.
I mean, I know Civil War focuses on the Sokovia Accords or whatever, but most of that movie is just Cap wants to protect Bucky.
Right.
Which is essentially his whole goal in this movie is I have to find out what happened to Bucky. I have to get him to remember me. And I don't know, man. This movie plays out so well. It is a spy thriller. Black Widow is in some of her best in this film. Captain America is obviously very well done. It's a movie that very similar to what we were talking about with Iron Man 3, where he has a very change of character, like an obvious change of character. Captain America is, you know, patriotic, trusts his government and his country, and believes in the USA from the beginning, to literally destroying the government that he works for in this movie because
the way a true patriot operates is country first, government is not. Government is not your country, and that's like you know, I think so when you're a kid, you know what I mean, you trust the government, you trust religion, you trust all this stuff because that's what you're taught. But when you get older, you start to question things, and you start to see the cracks in those foundations. And I think that's what you get here is Captain America literally becoming a man.
Yeah.
You know, going from a boy, even though he's a hero, even though he was brave and strong and all those things, but literally going from a boy to a man in this thing. And you know, I mean, I think that you know, you talk about character journeys, just a great one in this movie.
Absolutely. I cannot give this movie enough great praise. I mean, all the action scenes are great. That elevator scene is still incredible. And I mean, the fact that they have the best callback to it ever in Endgame, I'm like, this is so great. So good.
And you know, you got to take it also too, like, there's not a lot of great enclosed fight scenes like Old Boy and Raid Redemption. You know, and you get that kind of thing in this movie, you know, in this afternoon candy matinee movie. I mean, like I really do think these movies transcend so much more than just what they were believed to have been, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So. I mean, oh God, it's so good. I love that movie. Next we have Guardians of the Galaxy, a movie nobody thought was going to work.
Dude, one of the most surprisingly terrific movies ever.
It's so good. And obviously I'm rewatching all the films right now, and it's astounding to think that after I watched one and then two, because everybody says, two's not as good, one's really great. I really enjoyed two, and I think two has a lot more cathartic and great character moments, but one is just a great solid film.
Yeah.
Like one all the way through is just there's no
Funny,
slow parts.
Funny without being forced.
Yeah.
Um the kind of soundtrack that sneaks up on you, like how much you like it, you know what I mean? Characters that are ridiculously good, and a group of people that you legitimately care for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you care for these people and you want their relationship to be good, even though they can be cantankerous and they can be standoffish, but at the end they come together as a family, and it's super tight. And you gotta love that. You gotta respect the way it works, because it absolutely works.
What was that line towards the end of the film where Drax is like talking to them as they're like moving their way to Ronan, and he's like, "You are my friend. This dumb tree, you are my friend." And he's like, "And you, green whore, you're my," and she's like, "Oh, will you shut up?" And then like Nebula comes up and starts like berating Gamora, calling her stupid, and like halfway through her shit, she gets shot by Drax, and he's like, "Nobody talks to my friends that way." It's so good.
So good.
It's so good. I'm going to ask you a quick question, because we were talking about this earlier and I wanted to put it on the podcast because it's a really good question. I asked you, what's your favorite song in Guardians of the Galaxy 1? And then you were smart enough to say, well, how do you mean, my favorite song personally or how it was used in the movie? And then I went, oh, both please. So what is your favorite song in general first on the soundtrack?
That's tough. That's real tough, because
a lot of great options.
A lot of great songs on there, but I think I'm gonna go with Ooh Child. Ooh Child, things are gonna get easier. A song's so good that it doesn't really matter where you use it in a movie. It's always perfect.
For me, it's I'm Not in Love, which is used right at the beginning of the movie. Such a good song. I can't get over it in that film. So, song used in a movie or used in the movie. What do you think fits the best in that film?
Man, I don't know, because everything seems to be so good. The scene where he's dancing and coming up to to get the stone in the first place.
Oh yeah, the opening. Come and get your love.
And he's singing into the lizard. I mean,
they do the title card above him.
Yeah, I mean that's
such a good moment.
It's I'll go with that, because it sets you up with what to expect.
Yeah, for real. It really because the whole him walking up to that thing is so serious and dark and damp, and then it's literally bum 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 bum. Oh, so good. For me, it might be. I'm kind of stuck between Hooked on a Feeling, like when he's getting introduced into the prison, but I think I'm gonna give it to Escape, the Pina Colada song, specifically because it's him getting out of the prison and it's him like kicking ass going through and taking his headphones back, and then it's them leaving the ship and they're like, well, where is he? Like, we're not leaving without him because he's got the stone, blah, 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 blah. And then it's him circling the outside of the prison, and right at that moment, it cuts to him flying, and it's, do you like pina coladas? It's so good.
Yeah, it's great.
So good.
Amazing.
And then I think I told you a very interesting thing that I noticed when I rewatched the film that I gotta say again because it's so good, that at the, I guess, end of the tape deck, at the end of the gift that his mom gave him, assumedly, like, while she was dying, she made this for him, of the Awesome Mix Volume 1. The last song that plays is Ooh Child, and if you're thinking that when she made it, the song lyrics are, Ooh Child, things are gonna get easier, ooh child, things are gonna get brighter, breaks your heart. And
It's
when I watched that, I was like, oh my god, I didn't even think of that before. That's so smart. That's so clever. And then the first song that plays on the second Awesome Mix, the Awesome Mix Volume 2, is Ain't No Mountain High Enough to keep me from getting to you, babe. Oh, it kills me. It kills me.
It's rough.
To think that like and I bet you James Gunn was like, oh yeah. Brilliant. You know what I mean?
Sure. And Chris Pratt, you talk about a perfect piece of casting. Oh my god,
yeah. Him and I think all of them are perfectly cast now that I think about it. I was
totally,
gonna say like
he
Zoe
has
Saldana and
he has that quality of that vulnerable little boy who lost his mom.
Yeah.
Within this grown man's body,
and he really
you feel that.
He really keeps that through both films.
Absolutely, and you know, the the way he ruined Infinity War, or the way he ruined everything in that movie.
I still blame it to this day on the Russo brothers like having to like keep the movie going, so they'll like make a character stupid for like half a second. But my friend, my buddy Martin, you've been on Xbox with him.
That's my Fortnite buddy.
Yeah, your Fortnite buddy, because we got a win the other day. So he has this very good like analyst of Star-Lord, and it's kind of what you were saying, where what he does in Infinity War is not necessarily out of character, because it's literally the entire character development he's had through all three movies. He's a mama's boy in the first one. He is a daddy's boy in the second one. He just wants to make it up with his father, which ultimately gets ended by his connection to his mother. And the only other people that he cares about now in the universe is the Guardians and the love of his life, Gamora. And of course he would react stupidly, because that's his character. That's how he's very emotional. So after he kind of told me that, I was like, okay, I kind of forgive him, even though it is a dumb thing.
I don't forgive him, but I get it. And it's
in his character.
It's not an evil thing. It's actually a very beautiful thing. It's just it's you're talking about the fate of the world here, bro.
Came at the worst time.
Fate of the universe.
Yeah,
Sorry,
came at the worst time, but
yeah,
not out of character at least.
No,
at least it made it up a little bit for me, because I was like, damn it. But Guardians of the Galaxy, great film. Sure. Super enjoyable. Can't say enough good things. This is the movie that I still think is good, but you don't. Age of Ultron.
I don't think it's. Again, I don't think any movies in the MCU are bad, sans maybe Dark World.
Okay.
But and James Spader as Ultron,
kills
God
him.
Damn, so good. I don't like that Scarlet Witch is Russian at the beginning, and then now she's not.
Yeah, I mean, clearly after the first movie, they were like, well, she's supposed to be Russian, like in this film where she takes place, but people didn't like her accent. So we're just going to wean that out in the next movies.
We're gonna act like that never even happened.
But I mean, like, she does actually wean it out. Like the next film, she has a little bit of an accent. The next one, she not so much. And then by Infinity War, she's speaking regular, like, English accent.
I thought that this movie was okay, but a hero-making performance by Hawkeye.
Oh, thank you. This is Hawkeye's movie.
Absolutely is, and I would agree with you on that. And the line he says, "Look, none of this makes sense. I have a bow and arrow, but I'm still gonna go out there."
I think it's the city is flying. The city is flying. We're fighting an army of robots. Yeah. I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
Right, and that's brilliant. And a lot of the stuff he does in that movie gives you that real fallen for Clint kind of vibe. In
that same scene, it's when he's talking to her. And it is a matter of like, do you think you can handle this? Because she's never been in a fight. Her whole character has been, freak him out and then leave. That's her whole thing. So she's never been in a fight. She's freaking out. She's not ready for this. He's trying to like help her through it. But there's like a dad moment that sneaks in there in a quick second that I think is genius for Hawkeye when he says like, if you can't handle this, that's okay. I'll go grab your brother and make sure you're like, he'll come back to make sure you're good and you can sit out of this. And that line about him like, the city's flying, there's robots, he has a bow and arrow, none of this makes sense, but he'll have time to go and grab your brother to make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to lose you during this either.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's so well done. He's so perfect in this film.
Mm-hmm.
That line where you know, his wife is with them when they're on his like ranch house farm or whatever, and she says, "I look at these gods, these like crazy, like unearthly beings," and then he cuts her off and says, "You don't think they need me?" She goes, "No, I think they do, and that's what scares me."
What a great line. Also, by the way, the lady that plays his wife is awesome.
She is.
Velma. What's her name in real life?
I can't remember her name in real life.
Remember
but
it,
I love
she's
seeing
awesome.
Anytime I see her in a movie, I'm pretty happy that
Always
it's her.
great. Always great. And so there's things about this movie I do appreciate, by the way. I mean, like, and it's just that the stakes are so high. You know what I mean?
Has to
and
because it's an Avengers film. It's an Avengers.
But also what's the word? Like the the collateral damage is so like beyond, you know, I mean, like it's you got to think so many people died. And
yeah, well, that's what that's literally the plot of Civil War. That's what it's
but
for.
It also kind of like makes me sad and makes me like, man, this is Tony Stark's fault.
Yeah, it
you know what I mean?
100% is.
And that's like, that's one of those things. It's like, oh man, you don't want to see your heroes be in such a place as that.
Well, I think what it really is, this movie has a very important spot in the MCU because this is the Avengers at their best throughout it. Like, this is where they're working well together. I mean, just think of that opening scene where they're, you know, flying around that castle, and it's that one shot, and it's brilliant, and they're cracking jokes at each other. You know, Tony says shit in language, and then they're like calling them out, and it's great. But then by the end of the movie, they took a hit. They took a real hit to like their psyches, to themselves, and it fractures from then on there on out that we get Civil War, and the effects of that cause Infinity War. And
you know what I just realized?
What's that?
Everybody in the Avengers is an Avengers subconscious emotion. Captain America is their conscience. Tony is the ego.
Yes.
Hulk is the rage. Thor is the what is Thor? He's kind of ego too, but
he's pretty ego. But I guess he's power, maybe.
Maybe he's certainly entitlement.
He's their might, entitlement.
Yeah, you know, the Black Widow's their dark side. You know, I mean, like
Hawkeye's their
accuracy.
I was gonna say like structure, like down to earth.
But they're family, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's where the family, because he's the only one, you know, early on that has a normal life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's cool that he keeps it hidden, and it's cool that Fury keeps it hidden for him. And
yeah, not even on Shield's like files or whatever. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. So maybe that's like, maybe there's something to that. And because you know, it makes me think of the scene when Captain America says to Tony, he's like, nobody's ever, you know, nothing ever good's when you try to win a war before you start a war.
It's something like, if you try to win a war before it's started, people die every time.
Yeah, every time. And that's true. And that's, you know, that's why he's their conscience. And he's always, you know, we don't trade one for many. We don't trade lives. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And, you know, you think about it in terms of that. It's just, it's hard to see Tony making such an error that is such a, you know, because it's almost like, I don't want to say it's irredeemable, but it kind of borders on that.
Right. I mean, it really is because of his fear. You know, it's what Scarlet Witch shows him in the beginning is you know, it's exactly what It's exactly what he says in Infinity War. Like, I've had Thanos in my head for 6 years, because he's just afraid that like everything's gonna end. So he wants to protect everyone. Nick Fury, he has that great line with him in Age of Ultron where he tells him the vision that he saw, and then Fury, he said, the fact that all of my friends were dead wasn't even the worst part of it. And Fury says it was because you were still alive, like you were the last survivor. And Tony wants to prevent that at all costs. He wants just to keep everybody safe, and his drive is what causes Ultron, but it also is what causes the outcome of Infinity War and Endgame. He really is the selfless man by then, who made a lot of mistakes along the way, but in the end he's the reason why everything's okay.
Yeah, but also shouldn't he be in jail for reckless endangerment?
That's what the Sokovia Accords are for.
Okay.
He's like, I'll work for all of you, and I promise I won't do anything bad ever again. Does something bad in that movie. Yeah, man, I really enjoy Age of Ultron overall. I know many view it as the lowest of the Avengers films, and realistically it is. I mean, if we have to,
yeah, but that's a high bar.
It is a high bar, and I think overall, like, I just enjoy it a lot. I think they handle Quicksilver very well in that movie.
Yeah, it's a shame we didn't get more of him.
Yeah, people are hoping that he somehow will make an appearance in this WandaVision thing, because if it's all in their head,
right?
But I'd just like to see. I guess I'd just like to see more of what people don't like about it, so I can understand why. Because I know, like, Thor having his weird, like, pool party vision or whatever is kind of weird. But, like, they handled Vision himself very well with how nobody trusts him until the moment he lifts the hammer and hands it to Thor, and everybody's like, okay, that sells it.
That'll do it.
That'll do it. Thank you. They do that great line at the end where it's like, put the hammer in an elevator still goes up. Elevator's not worthy. Like, I love that so much. But overall, I think it's a good movie. I know other people don't put it as high, but anyways, we gotta end this. What is your top 3 of these films?
In order: 3, Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Okay.
2, Captain America. 1, Guardians of the Galaxy.
I had a feeling ours were going to be very similar, and they are. My 1 and 2 is different, though. It goes Avengers, Guardians, Winter Soldier for me. I think Winter Soldier could have
gone either way.
Yeah, I think Winter Soldier is just a perfect film in every way. And realistically, so is Guardians.
I loved Captain America, but I was so surprised by Guardians and how good it was that I gave it that.
It's still to this day like the pleasant surprise that the MCU gave us.
Plus, I love Parks and Rec, so I got to give him a little Andy love.
Yeah, understandable. But okay, I think that's gonna do it for this episode. If you're not a fan,
recommendation real quick.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Yes, we got recommendations. Go for it.
Well, I was gonna say
you changed yours.
I did, but I'll switch it back because we do sing the praises of Watchmen, so I'll change it back since it's available now for regular rent. I say King of Staten Island.
Yeah.
Pete Davidson. If you missed it during quarantine and you didn't get it when it was $20, get it now because it's an incredible movie, really touching, but also really funny. And Bill Burr is fantastic.
I was gonna say, I always think of that line that he has in the trailer where you're trying to drown me, and he's like, you're in an above ground pool and you're like 6 feet tall. Anytime that I watch that like part in the trailer, I'm like, this movie's funny.
It's good.
Yeah. My recommendation is What We Do in the Shadows. It is a film that I got on Vudu recently on sale. It is Taika Waititi's, I think, one of his first films. Have you heard of this?
I saw it. I saw it at the movies.
Oh, okay, cool.
I saw it at Sunray.
The way that you started shaking your head, I was like, oh no, does he not like it?
No. I love it. It's so funny. It's
so good.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched it, it's really good. It's about like vampires living with each other in the modern era. It's really funny.
It's like a mockumentary style, dude. It's so good. So good.
I should also say
smells like dog.
I should also say a little update, because last week my recommendation was Fantastic Four. I watched Fantastic Four.
Do you unrecommend it?
No, because I kind of enjoyed it. I will say, though, the biggest, like, I don't believe this more than anything else in this movie is the entire film. Ben Grimm, the Thing, is like, I'm a monster, I look horrible. And then Doctor Doom literally makes him normal again. And then he's like, now I'm going to take over the world. And Ben Grimm's like, well, I guess there's no other way. And he makes himself the Thing again. And then at the end of the movie, Reed Richards is like, thank you for helping us defeat him. I want you to know, I like, we have the power to change you back. And he's like, oh, it's fine, I'll stay like this. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? The entire film you've been saying how you hate being this. There's a great line where he says to Sue, he's like, you don't know what I would give to be invisible. I'm like, oh, that kills me. And then he goes back to being the Thing anyways?
What do you think he's working with wiener wise?
They make a joke of that in the second one.
Yeah.
Where, because he's got the blind girl as his like new love interest, and then Johnny Storm's like, how do you guys? And then Ben's like, what did you say? That's my impression of the Thing in those movies.
It's really bad.
Anyways.
It's really bad.
But I would say still watch Fantastic Four. It's okay. I mean,
All right,
that's the
fair
most
enough.
unbelievable thing about it is
Fair enough.
the fact that he's like, it's okay, I'll be a rock monster. So dumb. Anyways, that's
Rock
gonna do it for this. Rock monster. That's gonna do it for this episode. Please watch us on YouTube. Now that we've got that, we've got video now. You can look at both of our ugly faces. Tank's doing a little dance right now, and you can only watch it if you go to our YouTube page. Stop flicking him off. Hey, Tank, stop it. Stop. Okay, thank you. And then check us out on Instagram, also at No Talking During the Movies. Thank you again for watching. Next week, we're going to do our MCU Phase 3, our final phase in this series that we're doing. I really hope you like Marvel. If not, all of this has been just
It's been a rough 3 weeks.
But don't worry, next week's the last one. It's going to be a big one. All right, we will talk to you guys next time. Thank you so much. Once again, I am your host, Stephen Austin.
I am your co-host, Tank.
And we'll see you next time, guys.
Love you!
Bye-bye.